Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Dark Souls' most disturbing facts. First up is the curse. The undead curse that plagues Lordran isn't some mysterious disease that spontaneously appeared one day. It's a manufactured control system, and you've been participating in it the entire time you've been playing. The Way of White, that lovely religious organization that condemns the undead as a plague, appears to be the very institution creating them through deliberate rituals. If you watch the opening cinematic closely, you'll see what looks suspiciously like a ritualistic process of creating an undead. The maiden placing items on a corpse isn't mourning, she's conducting a ceremony. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Humanity, that little black sprite you've been collecting and using, is described in its own item text as a fragment of the Dark Soul. Every time you kindle a bonfire, you're feeding pieces of the Dark Soul into an extension of the First Flame, the same First Flame that powers the Age of Fire, the same Age of Fire that the gods desperately want to preserve. You're quite literally fueling the system that enslaves you, and the game trains you to do it voluntarily by making your Estus flask more effective. The rite of kindling, which you obtain from Nito's domain, is described as a sacred rite passed down among clerics. These are the same clerics whose leader, Allfather Lloyd, is praised for his undead hunts. So let me ensure I understand the chain of logic here. The church creates undead through rituals, hunts them as a plague, and teaches the survivors to feed humanity into bonfires to extend the Age of Fire. Truly inspiring. It's vertical integration applied to human trafficking. The legend of the chosen undead, that prophecy that makes you feel special, was propaganda manufactured by Gwyndolin. The illusory Guinevere you meet in Anor Londo feeds you this legend directly, asking you to succeed Lord Gwyn and link the fire. Except Guinevere left Lordran centuries ago. You're talking to a projection created by Gwyndolin specifically to manipulate undead into self-sacrifice. Frampt Kingseeker, Frampt, perpetuates the same legend throughout the land, which is fascinating because the crestfallen merchant mentions that even King Rendal's undead outbreak happened within the last 100 years. The curse is remarkably recent, and its sudden appearance coincides perfectly with the fading of the first flame. Congratulations, you've been gaslit into extending a dying god's reign by burning yourself as kindling. The entire game is designed to make you want to do exactly what the gods need you to do, and most players perform their role flawlessly. How pathetic. Next up is the Archives. Saith the Scaleless, Duke of Anor Londo and grandfather of sorcery, spent centuries kidnapping maidens and transforming them into writhing genetic abominations in pursuit of recreating the ancient dragons. His channelers, those six-eyed sorcerers you encounter throughout Lordran, were called the Snatchers because their primary job was traveling to distant lands to acquire suitable human specimens. Suitable meaning virgin maidens from churches, specifically selected because Seath needed to guarantee they weren't pregnant. He learned that lesson the hard way. The Archive Tower Giant Cell key tells you that the Giant Cell once imprisoned countless maidens. Countless. Not dozens. Countless. And now it's mostly empty save for a few key persons and the horde of mistakes writhing at fearfully close proximity. Those mistakes are the Pisakas, serpentine creatures with dozens of eyes that weep constantly in the darkness at the bottom of the archives. If you listen carefully when you're down there, you can hear them crying. They're not monsters. They're women who were forcibly fused with dragon and serpent genetics in an attempt to create a suitable surrogate to bear Sath's children. Two of the Pisakas, specifically the two that won't attack you even if you hit them, drop the miracles Soothing Sunlight and Bountiful Sunlight. These are explicitly described as the miracles of Guinevere, the princess cherished by all, which means those two Pisakas were Guinevere's personal handmaidens before Seath's channelers abducted them from Anor Londo itself and transformed them into sobbing genetic experiments. And nobody stopped him. Gwyn granted Seath the dukedom and turned a blind eye to the happenings in the archives, because Seath's betrayal of the dragons was simply too valuable. The goal of these experiments was to create something genetically compatible enough with dragon DNA to bear an actual ancient dragon, giving Seath the scales of immortality he was born without. Priscilla, that half-dragon you find in the Painted World, appears to be an accidental breakthrough that occurred because one of the maidens Seath abducted was already pregnant out of wedlock. The experiments warped the unborn child in the womb, creating a creature that was part human, part dragon, and wholly unwanted by everyone, including her creator. Big Hat Logan, that brilliant sorcerer who dedicates his entire undead existence to reaching the archives and studying under Seath, eventually discovers what his idol actually accomplished. The knowledge drives him completely insane. You find him naked in the archives, hollowing and hostile, mumbling about Seath's beautiful work. All progress demands sacrifice, as the sorcery description says. Just don't ask the maidens in the dungeon what they think about that philosophy. Moving on to Izalith. The Witch of Izalith attempted to replicate the first flame using her lord's soul, and the result was the Chaos Flame, which transformed her entire family into demons. and created a legacy of suffering that persists to the present day. Her youngest child, Ceaseless Discharge, was the first demon born from the unstable chaos flame. According to Miyazaki himself in the Design Works interview, Ceaseless was born so long ago that the flame wasn't yet stable, meaning he possesses chaos fire but cannot control it. It burns him constantly. The orange charred ring description tells you that his sores were inflamed by lava from birth, and his witch sisters gave him this special ring to ease his suffering. Let that marinate for a second. This creature has been in constant burning agony since the moment he was born, and the only comfort he ever received was a ring from his sisters to make the pain slightly more bearable. When you encounter him, he's standing watch over what he believes is his sister Quilana's corpse, clutching her gold-hemmed black set. If you simply attack him from a distance, he'll retaliate, but won't pursue you with genuine hostility. But the moment you take his sister's clothes from the altar, he becomes permanently enraged and chases you to his death. Those robes are literally the only thing he has left of his family, and you just robbed a grave he's been guarding for centuries. The witch's other daughters didn't fare much better. Queloch and the Fair Lady fled the ruins of Izalith and established themselves at the base of Blighttown, where they created the Chaos Servant Covenant. The Fair Lady, in her compassion, absorbed the blight pus and poison from her egg-burdened followers to ease their suffering. This selfless act poisoned her, and now she's slowly dying while her followers worship her, and her sister Queloch guards her. Angie, one of her most devoted servants, speaks of her sacrifice with reverence, completely unaware that his mistress is being killed by her own kindness. Quilana, the only daughter who escaped transformation, abandoned her entire family and faked her own death to do it. She left her gold-hemmed black set at a gravesite and fled, leaving Ceaseless to mourn over what he believes is her body. She asks you, the player, to free her mother and sisters from the flame of chaos, claiming she lacks the strength and bravery to do it herself. When you return after killing her family, her first words are not grief or anguish. She says, "Outstanding, you have done very well." That's the emotional response of someone who wanted them dead, not someone mourning her mother. The eldest daughter guards the bed of chaos directly, wielding the chaos fire whip described as the art of the eldest of the daughters of chaos. When you kill her and destroy the bed of chaos, you're mercy killing what remains of the Witch of Izalith, ending a family that tore itself apart through ambition, transformation, and abandonment. Family game night in Izalith really went downhill after Mom tried playing God. Next is shepherding. Gwyn's treatment of humanity represents one of the most comprehensive systems of control and exploitation in any fictional universe. And the remarkable part is how effectively he convinced humans to police themselves. Lord Gwyn, the great Lord of Sunlight, who defeated the dragons and ushered in the Age of Fire, was terrified of the dark, not metaphorically afraid, genuinely, deeply terrified of humanity and the dark soul they carried. His solution wasn't to fight humanity directly. His solution was to shepherd them like livestock. The Ringed City, revealed in Dark Souls 3, shows Gwyn's initial approach. He gathered the Pygmy Lords, gave them a city at the end of the world, and sealed them there with a massive wall of divine fire. He branded humans with the Dark Sign, a mark that leeches their humanity and binds them to the bonfires, creating a permanent link to the First Flame. This wasn't a curse that appeared naturally. This was a deliberate seal placed upon humanity by the gods, transforming humans into a renewable resource for extending the Age of Fire. The four kings of New Lundo were rewarded with a fragment of Gwyn's own Lord's soul for their foresight. Foresight regarding what, exactly? The item descriptions never specify, but the context is clear. The four kings developed a system for farming humanity from the undead population. Before Kaath corrupted them with the art of life drain, they were apparently running a model operation, supplying steady streams of humanity to fuel the bonfires while maintaining order through Gwyn's proxies. Its vertical integration applied to human suffering. The Way of White was created explicitly to continue this shepherding operation. Gwyn's uncle, Allfather Lloyd, leads a church that condemns the undead as a plague while simultaneously teaching clerics the sacred art of kindling, which feeds humanity into bonfires. Lloyd's cleric knights are widely praised for their undead hunts, using Lloyd's talismans to prevent undead from healing so they can be killed with impunity. The church creates a culture of fear where humans hunt other humans, turning humanity against itself, while the gods benefit from the entire operation. The term shepherd is used deliberately in multiple item descriptions and dialogue. Gwyn commanded his children to shepherd the humans, not guide them, not protect them, shepherd them, the same word used for livestock. Sheep that need to be corralled, managed, and occasionally culled for the benefit of their masters. And the sheep are so well trained that they volunteer to throw themselves into the fire, believing they're heroes chosen by prophecy rather than cattle walking into the slaughterhouse. Even the undead hunts serve a dual purpose. They create constant fear and pressure, ensuring undead feel desperate and grateful when they're offered a heroic purpose like linking the fire. You're not special. You're not chosen. You're simply the next sheep who made it far enough to be useful. Gwyn's solution to the Age of Dark was to gaslight, gatekeep, and girlboss humanity into eternal slavery, and it worked flawlessly for over 1,000 years. From individual cruelty to systematic oppression, let's examine collective punishment. Next is the Flood, when the four kings of New Londo succumbed to Darkstalker Kaathi's manipulation and began spreading the abyss through their Darkwraith servants. The sealers of New Londo made what they believed was a necessary decision. They flooded the entire city, not evacuated it first, not warned the population. They opened the floodgates and drowned every single person in New Londo to contain the spread of darkness. Men, women, children, the elderly, the sick. Thousands of innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the Four Kings' corruption were sacrificed in what the item descriptions call an agonizing decision made with the realization that countless lives and the robust culture of the city would be lost. The seal of Artorias' description lays it out plainly. The four knights were sent to contain the four kings when their covenant with the abyss began to consume them, but it was Ingward and his fellow sealers who made the final call. They understood perfectly well what they were doing. The key to the seal explicitly states that consequences were dire and that the flood was deemed necessary to prevent the abyss from spreading beyond New Londo's walls. This wasn't a heat of the moment panic decision. This was calculated mass murder dressed up as noble sacrifice. Here's the fascinating part. The flood didn't actually work. When you drain New Londo and descend into the abyss, the four kings are still there, completely operational and hostile. The dark wraiths are still there. The abyss itself is still there, waiting beneath the water. All the flood accomplished was trapping it temporarily and killing everyone in the city. Water doesn't destroy humanity or darkness. It contains it. Humanity sinks to the bottom, as the human dreg's description in Dark Souls 3 explains, accumulating like sediment until it festers into something worse. The citizens of New Londo are still there too, wandering as ghosts, forever trapped in their moment of drowning. They attack you on sight because they're cursed to relive their death eternally, unable to move on, unable to rest, unable to even comprehend what happened to them. The flood didn't grant them mercy, it granted them an eternity of confused, hostile undeath in the ruins of their homes. Some ghosts clutch items they were holding when the water came. Some wear the armor they died in. All of them are permanent evidence of what the greater good looks like when calculated by people willing to pull the lever. Ingward, the last surviving sealer, guards the key to the floodgates and won't give it to you unless you've obtained the Lord Vessel, proving you're capable of finishing what sealers started. He lives alone in the flooded ruins, surrounded by the ghosts of the people he helped murder, and when you speak to him, he talks about duty and necessity. He doesn't apologize, he doesn't express regret. He simply guards the seal, ensuring that the thousands who died weren't sacrificed for nothing, even though they absolutely were. The trolley problem, except the sealers chose to drown an entire city, and the trolley kept rolling anyway. Extraordinary work. From collective tragedy, we moved to personal devotion. Up next is the Abyss Walker. Knight Artorias, one of Gwyn's four knights and the legendary Abyss Walker, was sent to Ulakail to stop the spread of the abyss created by Manus. He failed completely, and his failure is one of the most tragic elements in Dark Souls' entire narrative. When Artorias realized he was being overwhelmed by the abyss, he used his Great Shield of Artorias to create a protective barrier around his wolf companion Sif, sacrificing his own defense to ensure the wolf would survive. Then the abyss consumed him, shattering his mind and corrupting his greatsword into the Abyss Greatsword, which is described as being swallowed by the dark with its master and now tainted by the abyss. When you encounter Artorias as a boss fight, you're not fighting a villain. You're fighting a broken man who has already lost everything. His left arm hangs useless at his side because he can no longer wield his great shield. He limps and staggers between attacks. In his few remaining lucid moments, he warns you to stay away, begging you to flee before he's forced to attack you. Whatever thou art, stay away. Soon I will be consumed by them, by the dark. He knows what's happening to him. He knows he's becoming a monster, and there's absolutely nothing he can do to stop it. The best part? Artorias' entire legend is a fabrication. The people of Lordran believe he successfully stopped the abyss and saved Princess Dusk. They built his legend on a complete lie. You, the player, are the one who actually traveled back in time and killed Manus. You're the one who saved Dusk. You're the one who stopped the spread of the abyss. But nobody knows this because time in Lordran is convoluted, and you can't exactly put stopped the Father of the Abyss in the past on your resume. Artorias gets credit for your accomplishment while he was busy being corrupted into a mindless beast. If you rescue Sif in the DLC before fighting him in the present, the cutscene changes. Sif recognizes you. The wolf hesitates, clearly remembering that you saved his life. He sniffs the ground, backs away, and then howls before drawing Artorias' sword and attacking you anyway, because Sif is guarding his master's grave, and no one passes, not even the person who rescued him centuries ago. That's loyalty. That's duty. And it's absolutely heartbreaking because Sif knows he's going to lose this fight. You can see it in his movements. When his health drops low, he starts limping. He struggles to lift the sword. But he never stops, because that's what knights do. Kayaren, the assassin who loved Artorias, appears after you defeat him in the DLC and begs you for his soul. If you give it to her, she thanks you and asks to be left alone. When you return to the present and visit Artorias' grave, you find Kieran's corpse lying behind it. She gave up. She had no reason to continue without him. Greatest knight of Gwyn failed. His lover committed suicide, and his companion guards a lie, but at least the legend survived, which I'm sure is very comforting to everyone involved, from devoted failure to deliberate atrocity. Next up is the pygmy. Manus, the father of the Abyss, was likely the furtive pygmy, the progenitor of humanity who found the Dark Soul at the dawn of the Age of Fire. He was buried in Ulakail in what appears to be a Stonehenge-like structure, clearly marked as an incredibly important gravesite. He rested there peacefully for untold centuries until Darkstalker Kathi seduced the people of Ulaktil into digging him up, and they didn't just disturb his grave. According to the Japanese dialogue, they desecrated his corpse and tortured him. Let's discuss what Ulasail actually was beneath its reputation for gentle sorceries. The Ulasail dungeon is filled with broken cells, chains hanging from ceilings, and tortured souls mounted on poles. One such creature, clearly human before transformation, drops only items from the chain armor set, which is described as common throughout the human world. Ulakail was systematically torturing humans in their dungeons to discover dark sorceries. The Dark Fog pyromancy is described as being, in theory, relatively close to humanity and a terrible poison for humans that perhaps reflects man's cruelty against his own. Most dark sorceries are described as being discovered by Ulakail sorcerers on the brink of madness. They awakened Manus from his ancient grave and subjected him to the same treatment they'd been inflicting on other humans. Throughout these experiments, Manus had one possession that kept him anchored to sanity: his broken pendant. The item description tells you it has a distinct air of both reverence and nostalgia, and that men of this time can neither manipulate nor sense its power. The Ulakail sorcerers realized the significance of this pendant and deliberately broke it, taking away the final thing this ancient being had, pushing him over the edge into complete madness. Manus' soul description is critical here. It states his soul is a viscous, lukewarm lump of gentle humanity. Not vicious, viscous, gentle. Ancient Manus was clearly once human, but he became the father of the Abyss after his humanity went wild. The Pursuer's sorcery, created from his soul, describes his emotional state. The will feels envy, or perhaps love, and despite the inevitably trite and tragic ending, the will sees no alternative and is driven madly toward its target. That target was his broken pendant. Dusk of Ulakail, who was captured by Manus, tells you she sensed certain emotions from the creature: a wrenching nostalgia, a lost joy, an object of obsession, and a sincere hope to reclaim it. Manus wasn't evil. He was tortured beyond endurance, had his last connection to sanity deliberately destroyed, and went mad with grief and rage. His wild humanity created the Abyss, which spread through Ulakil, corrupting and transforming everything it touched. He destroyed the entire township, stole Princess Dusk, and even pulled you through time itself in his desperate, maddened search for his pendant. The entire DLC exists because the people of Ulakail, known for their gentle sorceries, couldn't resist torturing the literal ancestor of humanity to steal fragments of his power. Guff's dialogue summarizes it perfectly. Ulakaile has brought the Abyss upon itself. Fooled by that toothy serpent, they upturned the grave of primeval man and incited his ornery wrath. What could they have been thinking? They were thinking they could torture an ancient god without consequences. They thought wrong. Every monster, every corrupted citizen, every tragedy in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC is the direct result of Ulakaile's choice to desecrate a grave and torture its occupant for power. The people of Ulakail tortured the father of humanity until he snapped and destroyed their entire civilization. But don't worry, at least they advanced the field of dark sorcery before everyone died screaming. From the torture of one being to the eternal suffering of all, we arrive at our final section. Up next is Rekindling. No matter which ending you choose in Dark Souls, the cycle continues. Dark Souls 3 proves this definitively. The linking of the five fire ending has you walk into the kiln of the first flame and burn yourself alive as kindling, extending the age of fire for perhaps another few centuries before it fades again and requires another sacrifice. The age of dark ending has you walk away from the flame, ushering in an age of humanity that will inevitably lead to someone else relighting it or the world stagnating in darkness until the fire spontaneously reignites. You are not special. You are not the chosen undead. You are simply the next piece of fuel thrown onto a dying fire. When you fight Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, you're not fighting the glorious Lord of Sunlight who defeated the dragons and ushered in the Age of Fire. You're fighting a hollowed husk who burned away everything he was to temporarily extend his age. His armor is charred. His movements are desperate and aggressive rather than tactical. He doesn't speak. He doesn't recognize you. He's been reduced to a mindless guardian of the flame. And this is what awaits you if you choose to link the fire. Gwyn knew this would happen, and he did it anyway, creating the original sin that cursed humanity to an eternal cycle of sacrifice. The kiln of the first flame is filled with the corpses of previous chosen undead who made it this far. The Black Knight equipment scattered throughout Lordran represents Gwyn's knights who were burned alive when he linked the fire, their armor permanently charred by the flames. These weren't volunteers. These were knights doing their duty who were incinerated as collateral damage when their lord decided to burn himself. Dark Souls 3 shows you multiple Lords of Cinder, all of whom linked the fire in previous ages, and they're all burned out husks who don't want to do it again. Prince Lothric explicitly refuses, calling the linking of the fire a duty that has been forced upon his family for generations. The entire game is designed to manipulate you into linking the fire. Frampt constantly pressures you to follow the legend and succeed Lord Gwyn. Gwyndolin creates an illusion of Guinevere to convince you that linking the fire is your destiny. Anastasia, the Firelink Shrine firekeeper whose tongue was cut out and whose legs were broken so she can't walk, asks you to link the fire because she genuinely believes it will allow her to die human. The game presents linking the fire as the good ending with triumphant music and a sense of accomplishment, while the Age of Dark ending has ominous music and makes you feel like you've done something wrong. Katha, the only character who tells you the truth about humanity and the Dark Soul, is also manipulating you for his own purposes. He wants you to become a Dark Lord and usher in the Age of Dark, but this serves his agenda just as much as Frampt's serves the gods. The Serpents have been playing both sides throughout history, achieving their desires at the expense of everyone else. Whether you link the fire or walk away, you're serving someone's plan. Humanity is literally fuel for the bonfires. Every time you kindle a bonfire, you're feeding fragments of the Dark Soul into the first flame, extending the age that oppresses humanity. The Rite of Kindling description even comments on how peculiar it is that humans found little use for humanity until they turned undead, because the system was designed to extract humanity from humans as efficiently as possible. You're not a hero. You're a battery. The pile of armor and weapons in Firelink Shrine tells the real story. Those are the previous chosen undead who gave up, who went hollow, who realized the futility of their quest and simply stopped. Every single undead who makes the pilgrimage to Lordran is following the same path, manipulated by the same legend, working toward the same pointless sacrifice. You think you're special because you made it further than they did, but you're just another match thrown onto a pyre that was never meant to burn forever. In conclusion, Dark Souls is a game about cycles of abuse and manipulation, and you should absolutely play it. Peace on Planet Earth 2.